All right, everyone, welcome back for another episode of Carnivore Trade. Today is Thursday, January 6th, 2022. So, markets getting a bounce here in the morning after a little flush. We said that we'd have to test the 50 MA today. That is what happened in the morning. And I said that yesterday in the live stream, if we tested it in the morning, it was more likely that we were going to hold up. If we had kind of opened in this range and chopped around and moved higher, it'd be more likely that we would roll over and test it in the afternoon, which would be bearish. I also said in the video today that I sent out to members that if this market fades, now we're hanging on by a thread here, as there's about 10, 12 minutes left before the market closes. But if this were to fade here, this would be incredibly demoralizing for the bulls. And what I mean by that is, imagine if you came in and you bought the dip here on the 50 moving average, and you see this move up, and then it's chopping around, making bullish consolidation, and then it tries to move up. And if it gets faded, I mean, that's going to be incredibly demoralizing going into tomorrow. And if this low gets taken out, then all those stops get taken out, and then you start to cascade to the downside. So we would probably accelerate to the downside if we fade this rally. Now, they could save it. And I think we can trade up, maybe for a few days if they do save it. But ultimately, I think whatever happens here is, if we don't start to roll over and accelerate, we're going to see some bearish chop, maybe some inside bar. So that's kind of what I'm expecting here over the next couple of days if we don't start to sell off. Now, we might sell into the close here. The big story of the day was the 10-year yield. And, I could see some selling into the close as investors may be skittish about the yield and it is starting to break out here. Unless they really rip it down tomorrow, this looks like we're going to have a weekly breakout on the TNX here. You guys remember a few months ago, or well, really a month or two ago, I said, look at this bull trap on TLT. They closed it above on a Friday, and then they ripped it right back down. So a failed breakout, and that resulted in a wildly sharp move in the opposite direction as we see the TNX now breaking out. Now, this is very important here. So the TYX, the 30-year, is still moving higher, but did pause a little bit, pulled back off the highs here, while the TNX had a much stronger day. So that tells you that, guess what? The yield curve is flattening. That's not a good sign for the market, and it's not necessarily a good sign for financials. So typically financials will perform a little bit better with the higher yield, obviously, but if the yield curve starts to flatten, it's going to hurt everything. But let's take a look here at the XLF. The XLF did hold up today, did manage to recoup most of the losses from yesterday, so holding on okay. Visa, flattish, MasterCard, oops, MasterCard right there. Did kind of had a bit of an island reversal though. Had this gap up 2 bars and then pulling back now. So the credit card company's not as stronger, although the banks are holding up okay. Bank of America, recouping the losses. Wells Fargo having a nice day here. JP Morgan off of the lows, and Goldman Sachs did flush out pretty hard earlier. It is negative though, and that is hurting the Dow. The Dow is underperforming today. You can see it on my screen here. Much weaker bounce there on the Dow Jones. And that is, Goldman makes up a large portion of the Dow. Also, United Health down almost 5%, which makes up a large portion of the Dow. That's a very good level there for short-term support, though, on United Health. But anyway, Dow underperforming. Let's take a look at the Russell. Russell actually the strongest horse today, so go figure, right? Been the weakest index for a while, and it is now the strongest. Now, you could make a case. I mean, let's just, this is a little premature, but we got to put all possibilities on the table. So you have the sharp move down. If this can trade back up, you could make a case you have an inverse head and shoulder here. So I don't know if that necessarily plays out. With yields, if banks do better, the Russell can outperform. So that's kind of one of your bullish case scenarios there. But let's not entertain it too much just yet. It's not even been really a day since. Well, it's been one full day, I guess, since we flushed out here. But in any case, just keep it on your radar. Russell outperforming for now, but starting to fade just like everything else here. It looks like we might dip a little bit into the close. I think it's really just that concern of yields right now that is putting pressure on the market. By the way, tech continuing to be weak. Look at the weak bounce here on Microsoft. This is a really good level on Microsoft. You have the 100 moving average and this major breakout gap. Now it could trade a little bit lower to 305, and that would be major support. But the fact that it's not bouncing here, it tried to bounce a little bit, but faded all the way off the highs and is really kind of just very weak. Not a very good sign here for big tech. Same thing on Apple. Look at how weak. It tried to bounce, got to the flat line, and now reversing lower. This really doesn't have much support until, I mean, you can say this pivot here at about 167, but I think it's got to go hit that 50 MA. It just got really extended here in the short term. And look at that trend line, by the way. This trend line's held up really well. So, you know, you got through it and tried to break out twice, and then, you know, eventually just was too overbought, too long in the tooth, touched that 3 trill mark intraday, and then rolled right over. I mean, just a classic kind of pump and dump, FOMO, you know, call it what you want, you name it. But anyways, big tech a little bit weaker today. Thought they would get better of a bounce. I think Google can go down and test 2,700. You know, maybe it gets to that 200 moving average, but I think it's a little too obvious here for me. I don't know if I would. I feel like everybody who's looking to trade Google would be trying to buy this 200. So I don't know if it quite gets there, or maybe it pierces it a little bit and you get down and test this little double bottom here. But anyways, big tech a little bit weaker overall. Let's take a look at, we already looked at financials. XLE, we talked about financials recouping the losses from yesterday. XLE, strong move. This one's been a bit, you know, tricky to trade. That's why I've been saying there's not a lot to do with the energy stocks right now. It's just been tough to get a good read on them. You know, I thought that they would come up, have some resistance in this area for the XLE around 57, 58. It just blew right through that, then reversed off the highs pretty sharply yesterday. So it looked like a breakout rejection and now closing up at the highs here. XOP up over 3%. Still didn't take out yesterday's highs, but holding up okay. And the OIH, which has been weak, has, you know, actually had a nice day as well, up 3%. So the energy service stocks are doing a little bit better here. It's just really a tough read on them, though. Really, if I'm going to be honest. Personally, I don't want to do anything with them right now. I'd rather just leave them alone until the picture gets a little bit clearer. But as far as spot crude, nice little push today. So this is starting to get a little extended. Maybe it wants to go fill that gap up at 80.58, but I think this is probably getting close to max move. It got up to 80.24 here. I think it's probably got to do a little bit of backing and filling if it's going to move higher here. So there's a lot of good resistance up in this area. It doesn't mean crude can't move higher, but in the near term, it's probably going to have to pull back a little bit, or at least chop sideways for a while. Nat gas higher today, but also still inside of this red candle here. So you know, we'll give it the benefit of the doubt for now, but ultimately I think nat gas is headed a little bit lower here. Let's take a look at the transports. So transports, not really much going on, kind of a flattish day here, down just 0.1%. Transports are holding up at the moment. So there's another pocket of strength. So you got transports, you've got the energy sector, and you've got financials that are holding up okay right now. But again, if that yield curve continues to flatten, it's going to take everything down. So just keep that in mind. Let's look at the dollar. So I think the dollar is setting up for a move higher here. 50 MA getting right up underneath price there, and that gave some tailwinds to the dollar index. And as this 20 moving average on the weekly time frame continues to upslope, that will also give tailwinds to the dollar index. And I think that's going up to about the 99 handle over the next couple of months. Let's take a look at gold. So gold coming in sharply off of the highs, all the way down to the 1787 handle. Currently, it's got some good short-term support here, but if you get through that, you got this trend line, and then every time you hammer on this trend line, it just gets weaker. So you know, I'm not in love with gold right now, but it's continuing to just play ping pong at the moment, and we'll just kind of leave it at that. Same thing on silver. Silver much weaker here, coming down to test that 2250 area, and now through that. Platinum pulling back, still, you know, still has a decent pattern here. It's not the worst, but it's also kind of sloppy. So if it's going to advance, I'd say max upside is 1020, 1025. In the near term, and palladium is so sloppy I barely even care, but it is kind of inside of this red bar. I guess you could make a case it's bearish consolidation short term. I don't know. I'm very neutral on palladium. This is a tough metal to track right now. Copper, again, let's take a look here. So copper's got to hold this. I'm going to put this right in here for us. Give me 1 second. All right, so 434.50. So if it holds this, that's holding this green bar, and it could continue to advance higher. Again, you guys know the resistance 451. But if it closes below this 3450 area, it's probably going to be headed lower. But in the near term, we'll give it the upside bias. It's hanging in there. Okay. Let's talk about Bitcoin. I'm not going to bother pulling up TradingView. Doesn't really matter. Point is, you had a nice little push down. Actually, you know what? I'm going to bring up TradingView. Sorry. Because I want to show you. There we go. So we did trigger a head and shoulder pattern yesterday with the close. And it is coming off the lows. Okay. You could make a case that you're kind of repeating this pattern here where you came down, it came down, and then you had this little double bottom. So that's your bullish case scenario, or bullish case for Bitcoin right now. If it closes back above this neckline, it's a failed pattern. But for now, it's still in play. It's still triggered. And if you start to see any type of sideways consolidation here, I would get the heck out of the way, because it's going to go a lot lower if that happens. But, you know, until that happens, it can hang in there, and if it closes above this neckline, then it can probably move right back up to, you know, 52,000. So that is what we're looking at there on Bitcoin. Outside of that, I don't think I have too much more for it. Let's take a look back at the spiders here. Yep, so it looks like they're saving it before the close here. Yeah, they're coming with some buy volume. Market set to close in about a minute here. Yeah, it looks like they'll save it. So let's take a look here on the daily. All right, so yeah, we might get a little bit of a bounce here, but a little doji candle. So that's telling you there's equal buyers to sellers. They held the 50 MA right now. Now, if you're bullish, you want to see them really reverse this tomorrow and have, you know, a gap up with a big blast off. On the other hand, if you're bearish, you want to see any sort of, obviously them fading any sort of rally or some type of a dead cat bounce, a choppy sideways type action. Anyways, we'll keep an eye on it, keep monitoring it. You guys know I will keep you appraised of everything. By the way, if you want to come join me on Patreon, we are now 5 for 5. We took 5 winners already in the first 4 days of the year, up well over 1% now. Year to date, so in 4 days, up over 1%, killing it over there. Anyways, guys, take care. Market's about to close here, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.